This is rude, I know, but I'm with Craig Foster. He's right behind me. Hi, Craig. Hi. This is his book. I don't know if you can see that because of the sun. Anyway, this is Penny Tracts and Polemics, a critical analysis of anti-Mormon pamphleteering in Great Britain from 1837 to 1860. This is the author, Craig L. Foster. He works at the Family Search Center. So I just wanted to ask Craig, he and I are working together at FAIR, why was you so interested in the anti-Mormon polemic in Joseph Smith's day in Great Britain? What was going on?
Well, and it actually goes, from Joseph Smith up through Brigham Young. The reason why I was particularly interested in anti-Mormon pamphleteering in Britain is because of the British Empire. The pamphlets had a great impact. If you look at letters and correspondence from missionaries who went to India or to other parts of the British Empire, their critics were getting pamphlets from Britain. And so there was a very significant impact of these British pamphlets. And that was one of the reasons, but also they had a plethora of topics. And they ranged from the mundane of talking about Utah being out in a weird, wild desert with mountains, kind of creating this imagery of a people kind of held prisoner out in the middle of nowhere. So they went from that to discussions about Joseph Smith's character, obviously plural marriage, and they brought in the theme of Joseph Smith, but then particularly Brigham Young as kind of a lustful Turk. And they used Eastern imagery to try to portray Mormonism, making comparisons of Joseph Smith to the Prophet Muhammad and things like that. So British anti-Mormon literature really had some interesting topics and some fascinating stereotypes that, quite frankly, some of them continue to this day.
They do, don't they?
Some of the themes and imagery that they used. That's why I say in the world of anti-Mormonism, there's nothing new under the sun, because it's pretty much, for the most part, the same thing
back then
to today. Obviously, they twisted a little. They've stopped some themes, like Mormons support slavery. Well, that's a moot point now, and it wasn't true anyway. But they don't use that because that's no longer an issue, and so they turn things around. Not so much the Spalding as DNA today, with Book of Mormon.
But they're still arguing against the Book of Mormon with the current
and yet there
science.
are still the themes of the Book of Mormon was all from the imagination of Joseph Smith so that he could make money off of it.
So he could make money.
Yeah, so he could make money. That was a big theme of the British. Don't leave Britain. Don't immigrate over there. They just want you to immigrate so that they can take all your money. And that was a favorite of theirs. So while some of the themes aren't used nowadays, still the general trends, the general stereotyping and themes are used today.
Now, in a way, this is kind of the counterpart of. This was actually, some of this information probably spurred on Parley P. Pratt and Orson Pratt. And John, that's where they began pamphleteering and became the first our FAIR ancestors, so to speak.
Parley P. Pratt, of course, his first response was here in the United States.
Right.
But Orson Pratt, particularly, when he was over in the British Mission, he wrote some wonderful responses. John Taylor wrote some responses, and then some of the other missionaries, lesser-known missionaries, wrote some wonderful responses to the anti-Mormon literature. John Taylor, for example, had a series of lectures, point counterpoint, on the Isle of Man, and so fascinating material. And that was the other thing I was going to say about British literature. They not only had the usual sensationalism and all that kind of stuff, but some of their tracts were really very, very interesting and got into deep theological discussions, to which, again,
Gosh, maybe our today's anti-Mormons could take a lesson.
Oh, they could definitely take a lesson. I once wrote John L. Smith a scathing letter, and I basically, at the end, I compared him to several of the anti-Mormon writers from Britain back in this time, and I basically told him, "You, sir, are none of these guys." They at least had some intellectual thought, you know. Orson Pratt wrote a wonderful pamphlet in response to a series of lectures that were given discussing the materiality or immateriality of deity, of creations, and Orson Pratt's response was the absurdities of immaterialism, which was a wonderful tract. But quite frankly, I didn't agree, but I really loved the literature that was written that he had to respond to, because it was very well thought out. Incorrect in my opinion, but very well thought out.
And Orson Pratt.
And Orson Pratt's was excellent.
I would have hated to have tangled with him.
No, it definitely not.
Yeah, that's wonderful reading. So
there's some wonderful stuff in the book and in the literature that is available.
All righty. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well, I'm on my way back home from the fair conference. It was a spectacular conference. Lots and lots of good subjects discussed. I'm just approaching Idaho from the Utah side. A lot of rain this morning, a lot of clouds. I really enjoyed talking with John Gee, the LDS Egyptologist. I cornered him and had some wonderful discussions with him. He's been producing materials on the hypocephalus and the Book of Abraham facsimiles and some of the historical backgrounds to the facsimiles in several different scholarly journals that I've gotten access to now. So I'm going to be putting together several more videos on the Book of Abraham facsimiles. It's one of my favorite subjects. And it is extremely interesting what John Gee is finding now. Hypocephali that are round, hypocephali that are rectangular. There's hypocephali that are now three-dimensional that we've discovered. It is just fascinating to see the various types of hypocephali and what this means for us. He's been translating the rims of some of the inscriptions of the hypocephali, and he's got some spectacular information on that I'm going to share with you. He told me one thing in particular that was extremely fun for me to find out personally, because I've done some research on the shiny ha in the Book of Abraham, in the text of the Book of Abraham, and we have now found shiny ha. A German scholar, a German Egyptologist, Krauss, has discussed the shiny ha element in the Egyptian literature, and it has to do with the ecliptic of the sun. It's associated with the sun, and it's just fascinating that that's now found. Interestingly enough, a few years back when John and I were trying to put together a paper on this, we couldn't find it in the Egyptian literature, and he said that's where it's going to be. He told me that point blank. He said, you know, we're gonna find it, but the question is, where is it? And it is in the coffin texts and the pyramid texts, but it's been mistranslated. And the German Egyptologist Krauss discussed that aspect of it. So John showed me some cool things on that. He's going to be publishing this. He mentioned it at the fair conference in his talk. He'll be publishing this in about a year, he said. So I'm going to keep my eye peeled for that discussion also. But I have some wonderful new materials on the Book of Abraham facsimiles that I'm also going to be sharing in videos. So this has been a spectacular fair conference.